Alright, welcome back to another Python programming tutorial, and today we are going to be talking about the data type known as a tuple. A tuple is a collection in Python where you can have duplicate elements. Tuples are immutable, meaning that you cannot change them once you create them, but they are ordered, which means that you can access the individual elements of the tuple by using the Python indexing system. So that's essentially what we're going to cover today, and let's go ahead and take a look. So let's first go ahead and create a tuple. So I'll call this tuple 1. To create a tuple, you're just going to use two parentheses, just like so. And then inside of here, you can start creating a collection. A collection is just a collection or a group of data stored under one variable name. So rather than having multiple variable names representing multiple pieces of data, you'll just have one variable name which represents a collection of data. So let's go ahead and look at an example. We can have apple, orange, and I don't know, grape. So this would, oh my god, grape. There we go. There is a good example of a tuple. Um, Very straightforward, and I don't know why this is bothering me. It's capital. There we go. So, but as you can see, there's an example of a tuple. Now, as I said before, tuples are immutable. Again, that means that you can't add or subtract or update anything about the tuple. So, for example, if I tried to do, for example, like the add method on the tuple, like so, and try to add, I don't know, 10 to this, you'll see it will not work. And that's what it means to be immutable. We'll look at how you can update tuples in a little bit here. But the one thing that tuples do have going for them is that they are ordered. So just in case we forgot, the Python indexing system always starts with 0. So this is the 0th index here. Then this is the first. Then this is the second. And if I had more elements, it would go 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So indice number 2 is the third datum in this tuple. Now that might seem weird, but that's just how it works, and it works like that in most other languages as well. You can also do a negative index in Python as well, and it works the same way in a tuple. So let's go ahead and look at two examples of accessing data inside a tuple. So I have my variable name here for the tuple. Let's say I want to access the third element in the tuple. This is located at 0, 1, indice 2. So I'm going to put my two brackets here and type in 2. This will grab the third element in the tuple and it will print it to the console window. Another way to grab the exact same tuple is to again type in the tuple's variable name, which is tuple 1, and then you can actually go negative. So instead of calling this 0, 1, 2, I can also go 0, negative 1, and I will grab the last element inside of the tuple. Both of these will print the exact same thing, and this is a great example of how to access anything from the tuple. So there you have it. There is the basic bare bones look at a tuple. Now, something to keep in mind about a tuple is that they do allow duplicate values and they don't have to be homogeneous. So for example, I can have like 3 10s here at the end. This is an int data type and this is a string. So these are different data types. So tuples are indeed heterogeneous. And I'll go ahead and type in 3 here, which will give me 0, 1, 2, 3, which should be 10. And then negative 1 will give me this 10 right here. So I have two 10s. That will print to the console window, and as you can see here, nothing breaks. This works just fine. So, good little show of tuples there, and the fact that you can have duplicates and multiple different data types inside of the tuple. And they are also ordered, which means again, you can access them using indices. Now, let's say you wanted to update the tuple. What you have to do is you have to make it a list. It's probably the best way to do it. So you'll just type in list and then you'll put in the variable name for the tuple, and now you have a list. And then you can now update the list by typing in the indice you want to update. Let's say I want to update this now to not apple. And then you'll go ahead and rename tuple 1, tuple 1, back to the tuple of the list that you just made. And then let's go ahead and print the tuple. So this is one of the negatives of working with tuples, is that, again, they are immutable. So in order to change any datum inside the tuple, we recommend that you change it to a list and then change it back to the tuple. So go ahead and type in tuple 1 here, and we'll print tuple 1 at the start so you guys can see what's going on here. So the way this program is going to run is I'm going to create the tuple. The tuple is immutable. I'm going to print the values of the tuple, which will print this entire tuple here. I'm going to change the tuple to the list by using typecasting. I'm then going to update the value of the zeros indice, which is apple. I'm going to update that value to not apple. I'm then going to take the tuple and change it back, or this new list that I created, and change it back to a tuple and rename it to its original variable name here. And then I'm going to print the values. So we will get two tuples that print here. The first one will be this one. Oh, excuse me, list 1, my mistake. And then the second one will be the same tuple, but this will be not apple. And excuse me, I had a small typo there. It had to be list 1, not just list. So there it is. And this is probably the best way to update the values, is to simply convert it to a list. Now, you can create two tuples as well. So let's say I have a tuple 1 here, and then I have a tuple 2. And let's say this is let's say this is, the fruits, and let's say this is their weights. Let's say like 2 pounds for an apple, 1 pound for an orange, and let's say like well, let's just keep it 1 for a grape. Let's say this is 4. It's 4, 3, 1. Okay. Now, what you can do is you can add these tuples together and create like a new tuple. Or you can extend the original tuple. So I can create like a tuple 3 here and set it equal to tuple 1 plus tuple 2. And this will create, and I'll go ahead and print tuple 3 here. And that will print all the values in one singular tuple, which is this datum here. Now, you can also assign this to the old variable here. So you can say tuple, and then you can add on tuple 2 to this with this syntax here. And just so we're clear, this here is the same as, this. They are both the same syntactically. There's no difference. So I'll go ahead and now print tuple 1. If I can type. And as you'll see, it'll print the exact same result we had from before. So that's all cool. Something else you can do with tuples is you can do what's called unpacking. So whenever you put multiple datum into a singular data structure or data type, like a tuple, that's called packed. You packed it all into one variable name, right? And just like you can pack something, you can also unpack it. So let's go ahead and look at an example. Let's say I have, fruits, and let's say our names. And my first name is N1, and we'll call this ants. And then I have my second name, which is N2, and we'll call this Dell. And let's say I have a third name here, and we'll call this Brian. Right? Now I can create a tuple for the names, so I'll go tuple names here, and I'll set that equal to N1, comma, N2, comma, N3. This now packs all of the data that was assigned here into a tuple. So if I print the tuple name here, you'll see that it's going to print these 3 values right here to my console window. This same syntax here is the exact same syntax to unpack it. So I'm going to go ahead and comment this out. Let's go ahead and look here. I'm going to create a tuple here, just like so. And instead of having this, I'll have just these values here. Call it like n1, n2, and n3. Say I have 3 strings, just like that. What you can actually do is then you can create name 1, and then you can go name 2, and then name 3, like that, and you can set that equal to the data structure of the tuple, and then each one of the indices here will be assigned to the variable name according to its indice. So this is at indice 0, so it will be assigned to this variable name here. This is at indice 1, so it will be assigned to this one here, which is also at indice 1, and this is at indice 2, so it'll go with this one. And if I print name, for example, name 2, it's going to print n2 because that is what's stored right here. So this is the idea of unpacking a tuple, meaning that I took a tuple and I deconstructed it into its same variable names, just like you can pack it together in the example above. So that's the idea of packing and unpacking a tuple. Now, something else you can also do in tuples is you can loop through the various elements of the tuple. So let's say I have names again, and I decide to store them in a tuple. And let's say I have ants, and I have Dell, Brian, and Carter. What I can actually do is I can also do a for loop of the elements in the tuple. So that's going to be for name. Now this can be whatever you want, just like your counter variable in a regular for loop can be named whatever you want. You can name that whatever you want. Generally speaking, when I have a collection of something, I use a plural variable name, and then when I loop through it, I use a singular variable name. So for name in names, colon, and then here you can do whatever you need to. So for example, you can do print name is in the tuple. And this will concatenate. As you can see, it looped through all 4 of these values and then printed this tag to the end to the console window. And that's a very good example of a loop that you can do. Oftentimes you may be looping through a tuple like so, looking for a specific number, looking for a max, maybe calculating the mean, a whole bunch of stuff that you could be doing here. And yep, and so that's a good example of what you can do there. And we've already looked at joining 2 tuples. So the last couple methods here that we're just going to look at with a tuple is the 2 methods that come inbuilt into Python. So that's going to be the count method, which returns the amount of times a specific datum has appeared in the tuple. And then you can also search for the index of a datum. So you can type in, for example, ant, and it will return the indice of ant. So let's go ahead and look at that. I'm going to create a new datum data here. That's a string, and call it del, and then I'm going to print names, and then I'm going to ask it to count the amount of times del happens. Since del happens in the tuple twice, I will get 2 here to the console window. As you can see, 2 appears. And then also I can ask for the index here. And I'll show you what happens when we have a duplicate in a second, but let's show when there's no duplicate. It's just going to print the indice here. Now when you have a duplicate, what's going to happen, and I'll go ahead and run it so you can see, is it's going to print the first time it appears. So the first time you see del inside the tuple is at indice 1, and that's what's going to appear when you ask for the index. So it won't say, 5, or excuse me, 0, 1, 2, 4, for example. This would be 4. Right? So that's the 2 inbuilt methods inside of a tuple. Now tuples are used quite a bit, but because they are immutable, sometimes they can be a little tricky to work with, but tuples are still one of the most foundational data structures in Python, and you should definitely know how to use them. So that pretty much finishes up our tuples tutorial. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them in the comments, and I will see you all in the next one.